What up, people? Grand Rising, how you doing? Welcome to another week with Deconstructing Christianity. I am your host, Coach Renz, and yes, Tim, we are here for the ads. Always got Tim saying something. Always gotta say something. Always gotta say something. Oh, it's been a hard day because it's 100 degrees outside. It's still 99 degrees outside at 7 o'clock. But I want to welcome everybody to Deconstructing Christianity. I am your coach, your guide, Coach Renz. And tonight we're going to discuss are Black Americans Muslim Moors, Black Americans Moors, and should we all be practicing Islam? Is that our native religion or the religion that is best suited for us? And we're going to discuss how this religion came to dominate in certain cultural areas. I know you guys already got statements you want to make, but I'm going to do the lesson the way I want to do it, no matter what. So we give about 5 minutes for people to get on. So take your time. We got 5 minutes before people get on. I want to thank everybody for being here, everybody who supports the channel by being members of the channel on YouTube, subscription holders on Facebook. Your memberships are greatly appreciated. Those who support the channel that way, I greatly appreciate any and everything that comes in. It is greatly appreciated. As a reminder, if you look in the description of this video and many other lives, you will see that the link so that you can join us on October 31st through November 2nd here in San Antonio for our meet and greet, our first ever meet and greet, Coach Renz, with free thinkers deconstructing from Christianity. We'll be meeting here in San Antonio. It will not be 100 degrees like it is today. It will still probably be about a good 80 and 90 degrees, but it won't be 100 degrees. What exactly is a Moor? We are going to cover that. So hold on to your horses, Sir Timothy. We will get to there. What's up, Donald? How you doing? I can't tell you what it is yet. We have to get into the story of it first. So you gotta wait, Tim. Always trying to be ahead of the class. So it's been a hot day, y'all. It's been a hot day. I had to walk around downtown. I ain't gonna lie to you, the heat beat me down. If any day was a good day for Christian or Muslim to try to jump in here and outwit me, today would be the day. Because the sun, it put it on me. It put it on me today. It was hot. 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 But I'm glad to be here. Made it home just in time to get myself situated. I had to reload a bunch of stuff because it went off. I had it all set up earlier and it was gone. But I look forward to it. So we're going to talk about we're going to talk about the Moors and this whole Moorish movement that is going on primarily in America, and where it came from, what the thought process is of it, the storyline to it, and then we're going to break it down. So we're just waiting for the 5-minute mark before we get started. That's when I'm gonna light my cigar, and we will get started with the show. How you doing, Rhonda and Debbie? Glad to see you. Glad to see you. I hope everybody's getting themselves ready. That they've hit the link in the description and made their reservations for our Free Thinkers meet and greet here in San Antonio. So I'm pretty sure you guys have already done that. You've communicated with others that you might want to partner up with and share a room. But I look forward to it. Look forward to seeing everyone there. Everyone. I expect numbers to be great. We're going to meet at the Japanese Tea Garden, which is also called the Chinese Tea Garden. We're going to have a meetup there. We're going to the restaurant, the hotel, the Drury Plaza on Riverwalk serves a breakfast and a lunch. Well, breakfast and a supper. That's part of your room reservations. Morocco sounds like more. Yeah, stop jumping ahead of class, Tim. We're also going to have a deckside pool meetup at the Drury Plaza. So we're going to be doing a lot of things in and around that part of town, and as well as it's very walkable. That's one thing I will give this city. San Antonio is incredibly walkable. So we will have a good time. Our Friday night meetup will, right now, as it stands, will be at Devil's River. Um, that might change now that I think about it, but right now, we're gonna be there. Well, welcome, Kathy from Winston-Salem. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So it's time to light the cigar. My La Angelina, my wife's hand rolled cigars. It's time to light the cigar. And then we're going to get into this. What's up, Wrath? How you doing? All right. So, quick question: did anybody see the video that I put up earlier? Yes, Ron. I gotta get the cigar going. The video that I only did one video today. That video concerning what we're going to talk about tonight. If you, I always like to ask that question. If I did a preemptive video, got my coffee, ready to roll. Well, if you didn't, let's get started. So let me tell you a story. So according to the Moorish Science Temple here in America, according to many who are attempting to get their sovereignty, as far as claiming themselves to be descendants of the Moors, and that all Black Americans and when I say Black Americans, not just in the United States, but through the Caribbean, North America, Central America, and South America, just joining me in the smoke, are all Moorish. We're all Moors. That we are we are descendants from an ancient group of people who conquered and established civilizations all over the world. Now, the more science has grown over the years, the language and the ideas of it has grown over the years to include that Moors were the ones who initiated civilization in China, who initiated the Mesoamerican civilizations, that Moors were the ones who initiated all African civilizations, European civilizations, and every civilization around the world has now been attributed to Moors, according to the new leadership within the Moorish Science Temple. But as the story goes, so let me tell you a story. In around 610, when the Prophet Muhammad received his message from the angel Gabriel, that message was then passed along to scribes, and those scribes recorded those messages. After they recorded those messages, Islam became the religion of many Arab groups and Arab tribes, and they formed into one nation. These Arab tribes then began to conquer throughout the Arabian Peninsula and then up into Mesopotamia, throughout the Levant, into Anatolia, and then across North Africa, eventually conquering into the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal, and the Italian Peninsula, including Sicily and Sardinia. Well, as they conquered these nations, they brought civilization, and they brought people under their wing. The Berbers became a part of them. The Mauritanians became a part of them, reconquering the lands that the Roman Empire had previously conquered. Then Tariq, a foraging general, crossed the straits of what is now known as Straits of Gibraltar, which the rock was originally named Jabal Tariq, crossed into the Iberian Peninsula and began to conquer all of Portugal and all Spain. These Moors conquered, and they ruled Spain, for over 700 years. They ruled the Iberian Peninsula. And when they found them, they found that they were European monarchies who were living in thatched huts, sleeping in the same space as their dogs and their other cattle and sheep and goats, spreading disease as uneducated barbarians. So they brought to them their wisdom of teaching and setting up universities, They brought science and religion. They brought astrology and astronomy. They also brought hygiene and taught them to bathe and taught them that they should bathe regularly to prevent disease. They also brought in medicines. And these medicines changed the landscape of the Iberian Peninsula, and all of Europe fell under the spell of the Moors and all their advanced technologies and teachings. And the barbarian Europeans came out of their caves and out of their thatched huts, and they were educated. They learned civilization. And as they learned and gained this civilization, they then became displeased with the Moors, because how dare these black men come and rule over them? And after 700 years of being under the rule of the Moorish Empire, they then expelled them out. And in 1492, the last battle of Granada and Cordoba occurred, where Ferdinand and Isabella reestablished European control over the Iberian Peninsula. And then by 1609, they completely expelled all of the Moors from Spain. Now, when they was expelled in 1492, those first Moors that left, they sailed away on ships, and they landed in the Caribbean. And they then became the ones that Christopher Columbus wound up meeting and seeing, and brought some of them back as slaves, and then began to enslave all the ones that were found in the Caribbean. Other Moors who were expelled in the 1500s and the early 1600s, they escaped down into sub-Saharan Africa and became the West Africans, who then, at the behest of Pope Clement and Pope Nicholas V, who wrote a papal bull that instructed the Portuguese and the Spain to go down into West Africa and find these unchristian Moors and force them into slavery and force them into Christianity. And thus began the transatlantic slave trade. So therefore, all Black Americans, all Black Caribbeans, all Black people within Mexico and Central America and South America, they're all Moors. And so Black people don't know themselves, know who they are, or their history. It's been whitewashed. It's been taken from them. Their true religion, and the true religion of the Black man, as said by the Nation of Islam, is Islam. So the question then is any of this true? Well, some of it is true, but a whole lot of it, unfortunately, is not true. So what parts of this story is actually true? Well, it's true that Muhammad believed that he was speaking to the prophet, to the angel Gabriel, and that angel gave him the Quran. Muhammad then translated that Quran repeated what he was taught by the angel Gabriel to scribes, and those scribes wrote it down, and that created the Quran. And the first caliphate was started, and they did conquer the Arabian Peninsula. They did first conquer other smaller Arabian tribes, and then they began to conquer the Arabian Peninsula. Now, they conquered over through the Levant and into Mesopotamia and all the way up into modern-day Turkestan and over towards over into northern India in the Indus River. And then they began a stage, and this was from the time frame about 611 all the way through to 711, where they conquered all the way across North Africa, conquering the Berbers, conquering the Mauritanians, and conquering into Spain. and taken over the overwhelming majority of the Iberian Peninsula and some of what is modern-day France. They never conquered the entirety of the Italian peninsula. They conquered Sicily and Sardinia, but they never actually conquered much past the city of Naples. So they never actually conquered the entire Italian peninsula. So the remarks that are made that say that they were the ones who started the Renaissance, well, it's false. The Renaissance actually began in Florence, and the Moors never conquered up into past Rome, which Naples is fairly close, but they never made it past Rome, and so they never conquered Florence. So their influence was minimal at best to beginning the Renaissance time frame. So that part is false. But conquering the Iberian Peninsula, Tariq Jabal did conquer the Iberian Peninsula. He was the general in charge, and the Rock of Gibraltar was formerly named Jabal Tariq, which I personally have stood on it and seen the placard that makes that statement very clear. Now, as far as them being black, that begins a whole nother question. Where did that come from? Who started that idea? Some will be triggered when they watch this video because of what I'm going to say about this man, Noble Drew Ali, whose birth name, born in 1886, is Thomas Drew. So Thomas Drew, who in most situations was born in North Carolina, but some census records and military draft records demonstrates that he may have been actually born in Virginia. But Thomas Drew, now known as Noble Drew Ali, was born in 1886. It is theorized and legendized as far as his upbringing. Some say that he was orphaned by two former slaves. Others say that he was the child of a Muslim, a Moroccan, and a Cherokee Indian, while others have said that he was born, parents are unknown, but grew up with his aunt, and she was so mean that she threw him into a furnace. He left and ran away from her house when he was at the age of 16. And it is said that when he did that, he joined a group of Romanis, which we call them gypsies. So he joined some gypsies, and those gypsies took him to Morocco, and they took him to Cairo, to Egypt. And when he was in Egypt, he studied under the priest, and the priest recognized his power and his influence and declared and taught him mysticism. And then in one story, the priest declared him to be a great prophet. In another story, the priest declared him to be the reincarnation of Jesus, the Buddha, and Muhammad. None of those things can be verified, but these are claims that the Moorish temple has made over the years. Upon leaving Cairo and becoming an adult, he moved then to New York and started trying to teach Moorish science. It didn't work as well in New York, and so then he left and went to Chicago and began to teach it there, where he set up the Moorish Temple number 9. And in setting that temple up, he grew to have a following of over 35,000 people, and this was in 1926. Well, he continued to grow and incorporate Eastern philosophies with Christian philosophies and Islamic philosophies, and claimed that when the mystic in Egypt had spoke to him, that he had received the lost books, the lost chapters of the Quran. But it just so happened that those lost chapters of the Quran just happened to be the missing years of Jesus. Similar to the gospel, the infancy gospel of Thomas, except it went beyond that. It went to the statements of copying another writer whose name I just forgot out of my head, who says that Jesus, in those missing years, went to India, went to Egypt, went to Afghanistan and Pakistan. And so the idea that Jesus had traveled to India was pushed by Noble Drew Ali. And so he also wrote his own Quran, and it's called the seven circle Quran, simply because it has a big red 7 on it with a blue circle. And he also claimed to have other writings, and these writings were attributed to other so-called lost gospels of Jesus. And he did instruct people who were coming out of Mississippi and moving up to Chicago during that time frame of the Great Migration to Chicago, that they should live a normal life, that they should be develop their own culture, that they should be law-abiding citizens, that they should work with one another and establish a culture in the America. And he deemed that Chicago would become the new Mecca. Not that it will replace Mecca, but it will become the new Mecca, because the Midwest seems to be the closest spot in the United States to him, to Mecca. So he established many, many chapters in Chicago and other neighboring cities and states. Now, there was a conflict. He got into a dispute between other leaders, and in that dispute, one of the leaders was stabbed to death. Noble Drew Ali did not participate in it directly. He was out of town, but when he arrived back in town, the police arrested him. They questioned him. They found no reason to keep him and hold him, and so then he left. But soon after he left, he died. Some stories say that he was shot. Other stories say that he died of tuberculosis pneumonia. And while the most dominant story that is told is that one day he laid in the lap of one of his followers and simply gave up the Holy Ghost. Now, interestingly enough, before we go into more information about this, it is believed that a young, very light-skinned man named David Fard was a prominent member and student of Noble Drew Ali. But at Noble Drew Ali's death, there was an infighting as to who was going to take over. And so the ideas of David Fard were repelled. He was rejected. He left Chicago, moved to Detroit, where he met a man named Elijah, who would become known as Elijah Muhammad, and began the Nation of Islam. Now, for years, almost a century, the Nation of Islam has denied any connection with the Moorish Science Temple. It wasn't until 2018 that Louis Farrakhan admitted the fact that their beginnings came from the Moorish temples. And so this is why there are many similarities between the Moorish temples and the Nation of Islam, because many of the things were set up in the exact same way. So this is the man who began to teach the idea that African Americans and all African Americans, not just the United States. When I say African Americans, I mean all of the Americas, are not from Africa at all in the sense of sub-Saharan Africa, but are actually Moors. So now the question begs, what is a Moor? We have to answer that question first. Well, as we were talking about the Arabs, the term Arab is actually a Roman term. It's a Roman term that is relatable to the Arabian Peninsula. It was called the Arabi Desert. And those people who were nomadic in this Arabi Desert were the ones that the Romans began to claim and call them Arab. But before they were Arab, they were a group of people who most likely stem from the Akkadians. as a nomadic group that migrated as the Persian Gulf was filled with water during the Younger Dryas flood. If you've been with me long enough, you've heard me speak of how this area at the Arabian Peninsula where it has the big curve, all the areas north of that used to be dry, and the Tigris and Euphrates River joined and became one river and flowed down. And according to Arabian archaeology, the Arab people are people who believe that they came from a land where the fresh water and the salt water mixed. Now, some of you already know that this sounds familiar. It sounds like the Anunnaki, because within the Anunnaki story, it talks about how deep in the Apsu, the fresh waters and the salt water mix. This land was also not only, the entire landmass area was not only called the Apsu, but it was also called the Dil Moon. The Dil Moon is the story within the Enuma Elish that teaches of a Garden of Eden, a peaceful place where animals don't kill each other. There is no death. There is no evil, no sin. And this is where Enki and Harsag and Enlil and Anu created man. So just like in all creation stories, they believe that they were the original created people of the gods. Because yes, before Muhammad, the Arab people were polytheistics. And so as that region filled up with water, these people who are just like Sumerians migrated up to where the Euphrates and the Tigris River meets in Kuwait. And in this area, they became a nomadic people that began to roam the desert, separating themselves from the Sumerians and the Akkadians. But they did not separate themselves too much to the degree that they did not lose their language. Their language is a Proto-Akkadian language. The original language stems from a Proto-Akkadian language that then became and Akkadian is a Semitic language. And then, so I should say Proto-Semitic language. It was a Proto-Semitic language derived from the Akkadians. And then the language became more centered Semitic and then developed into the Arabic that we know of today. These were nomadic people. When they were conquered by the Romans, or they dealt with the Romans, they dealt with the Romans more in a trade. They dealt with the Greeks. They dealt with all Mesopotamian people because they were considered to be the ones who were in charge of the trade route through the Persian Gulf to India. And so you had to travel through their lands and travel past their ports in order to get to India. And this allowed them to develop into their civilization beginning from about the 4th millennium BCE. So we're talking 3000 BCE. There are some that believe it started in the 5th millennium, which would put it at 4000 BCE. But in any regards, they were present. These nomadic desert dwelling people were present during the time frame that the Bible claims that Adam and Eve were created, that Abraham was walking around, that Abraham had wives. Now, before this time frame, they never claimed to be descendants descendants of Abraham, nor believed in this God Yahweh. They worshiped many different gods. And these Arab people, in the worship of their different gods, maintained this. But the Arab people, what did they look like? Because that's one of the main things we're talking about here. What did they look like? Most archaeologists are willing to accept that in the early time frames, in that 3rd, 4th, 5th millennium, they were most likely as dark-skinned as I am. But over the centuries of dealing with people from the Caucasus area, dealing with people throughout Mesopotamia, throughout India, throughout the mountainous areas of Afghanistan, modern day Afghanistan. And then once they were conquered, they were intermingling with all the other Mediterranean cultures, with the Greeks and the Romans and all these other peoples. And yes, with the Egyptians and the what's them people called? The Hebrews, once they finally came onto the picture, that they developed their own subset of ethnicity, that their ethnicity truly became more established. Now, one of the things that indicates this is the fact that Arabs tend to have more Neanderthal DNA than East Africans, and definitely South-Saharan Africans do not contain any at all if their family members never interceded with anyone else. But they don't contain as much Neanderthal as the Europeans. This is believed because the type of Homo sapien, the type of Homo erectus, Homo sapiens that were in this area separated themselves from the sub-Saharan Homo sapiens in and around 110,000 years ago. But they did have a mixture with roaming Neanderthal tribes. So these people would not have looked as dark as I am, other than the time frames when they were trading more with the people of Nubia during the 1500s on down to about the 600s, 700s CE time frame. So these people would have been brown. Yes, the Arabs would have been brown, but they would not have been black. So they would have been light skinned, as we like to say. Especially when they were dealing with the Greeks, and the Greeks had taken was all throughout to the end, had taken all the land through the Indus River and were making their way back around through Egypt. Although they had conquered Egypt, were making their way back around through Egypt when they were in control of this area. So when we look at the Greek Empire, when the Greek Empire conquered this through Mesopotamia and around the northern part of the Arabian Peninsula and all the way into India, Alexander's quest brought him not directly back over land, but the easiest way to get back would be traveled by sea. So they traveled around the Arabian Peninsula, coming up the Red Sea was the plan. And then to get to Egypt and then cross over into the back to the Greek Isle. But of course, we know Alexander died and Ptolemy took over Egypt, and the other generals took over the other portions of the Greek Empire. Now we know in Hellenization, what they do is that they force intermarriage between their people. They also intermarriage between the people that they trade with in order to gain stability and to liken their gods and their culture to the culture by which that they're dealing with. So they intermixed with the people who were Arab, and then began to look similar to them. Now they didn't become true Arab by name until the Roman Empire. And as we see on this map, the Roman Empire carved deeper into the into the Arabian Peninsula, especially on the west side of the Arabian Peninsula. Now, as these Romans are mixing, the Greeks are mixing, and all these other tribes, and one of the things we know about Romans is that the Romans built magnificent roads for their era because they had the magic of Roman concrete. Roman concrete, as we can still see today, was an amazing feat because their testimony of their construction still stands. You go to Barcelona, you can still see Roman Colosseums. You go to Rome, you see Colosseums. You go to Damascus, you can see Colosseums. You can find Roman architecture up in the British Isles. Roman architecture can be found all throughout these lands that they had conquered, as you see on this map. And their their movement of people was something that this Mediterranean world, this Western culture, had not seen before in time. So they were very influential into what was the Arab people at that time frame, the tribes, the wandering nomadic tribes that were wandering around in some of the port cities down along the modern day Persian Gulf. So needless to say, there was a lot of moving of people and mixing of people. Hence the lighter skin, the straighter slash curlier hair, not as much connection with the Nubian people. The closest connection they had to Nubian people was the people in Egypt, the Nubians who were in Egypt. But of course, by this time, many of the Nubian people in Egypt were not as participatory in the Roman government and the Roman lifestyle in the Mediterranean. They remained in the Axiom Empire. They remained down in South Sudan, and the Sahara Desert was deemed to be one of the most difficult places to try to cross. So not much trade and interaction was going on between Saudi Arabia, North Africa, and the Sub-Saharan Desert. So we didn't have as much interaction. So the darkness was leaving. The darkness was going away. This image that they like to propagate, which is actually more of a modern day creation, is not something that you will find in tapestries when you go throughout the Iberian Peninsula or even into any of these areas. You won't see that. You won't see it at all. So we know that Rome conquered and they became lighter and lighter. Now, I want to keep that one up, actually, this one up. Now, as the Muslim Empire began to grow and conquer, so let me back up a little bit. So when Muhammad was told by Gabriel of Islam, of the Quran, and started establishing himself first in Medina and then in Mecca, he was teaching that they came from Abraham and his wife Hagar. And of course, in the Bible, his wife Hagar was his slave wife that Sarah convinced Abraham to sleep with in order to bring forth a promised child. That promised child, but then Ishmael was not deemed as the promised child, and they were sent down to the wilderness not once but twice. But in Islam, they were sent down to the wilderness, and then they built, and they was given an oasis, and in that oasis is how they made money and built their kind of civilization. And then he produced 12 kings, and those 12 kings become the Arabs. And it is through that is how their lineage comes about. So it changes from the more Akkadian Sumerian beginnings of their civilization into the Quranic version of their civilization through Hagar and becoming Abrahamic. They do not, and they believe that they were naturally looking the way that they were looking in the 600s, that there were no other additions or subtractions to who they were. They were these brown people who were nomadic people in this peninsula, the Arabian Peninsula, and then they began to conquer across. Now, when they conquered across North Africa, they did conquer, the part is true, they did conquer all throughout North Africa. They established kingdoms and different caliphates at different times from 600 to 700, and then on into the 1400s. They maintained this empire, not losing it until the Crusades of going back and forth and losing to the Ottomans, but also fighting the Persians at the same time frames that helped weaken them so that they couldn't maintain their empire. But the part that Noble Drew Ali hinges on is the fact that they conquered Spain. Now, he claimed, Moors often like to say he conquered Europe. No, they conquered Spain and a little bit of Italy, just a little bit of Italy, not a whole lot. They like to claim that they brought civilization and that they were living in hovels. And is it true? Did they bring certain levels of civilization? Did they upgrade the civilization? Yes, they did. But to give you an idea, and I want you to think about this logically. This is a church that was built in the 600s in Spain. I got a whole bunch of them, but I didn't feel the need to put a whole bunch of them up here. But this is a church that was built in Spain in the 600s, prior to the Moors ever coming to Spain. If they're building churches like this, why would they be living in caves, as the Moorish science like to claim? Well, one of the reasons why they were able to build churches like this, because of what I said earlier, Spain was conquered by Rome, and Roman roads and Roman concrete allowed for them to build all these different structures that allowed them to live and build their civilization. Now, I am going to throw another one up there real quick that gives you even more indication of the amount of construction that was going on in Spain during that time frame, before that time frame. So here it's an easy list, and each one of these structures, and there were more. This is just all a screenshot would give me that I can pull up, but there were more listed above and below. All of these were built before the Moors ever came into Spain, and these were all built in England. Now they'll claim that the English were living in caves, that they were living in thatched huts. And this is true for the poor people. The poor English people were living in thatched huts. The poor English people were sleeping in the same room as their cows and goats and dogs. But that is not true for those who were middle class and above. The middle class and above were not living in that same manner. Did they teach them more about hygiene and things of that nature? Sure, they did. But these Roman ruins, these Roman cathedrals and amphitheaters and castles were already built before the Moors ever stepped foot in Spain. And this one is actually in Spain. So when Noble Drew Ali was claiming that they were unwashed and they were uneducated and they were living in caves, was just a lie. Because in 1926, how many black folks would have been able to check him? How many black folks would have been able to say, oh, he lied? How many could read in 1926? How many coming out of Mississippi in 1926 cared if it was true or not? And seeing as what they was dealing with. But this is where some of these misinterpretations come from, sprinkled in with some truth, but filled with a bunch of lies. Now, as we get back into it, these people, these Europeans, they had a name for anyone who practiced Islam. They had a slur that they liked to use. Kind of the same way that there's a slur used in America that starts with a letter N. There was a slur that they had that starts with the letter M, and it was called Moors. They got the idea of calling them Moors simply because when Rome conquered North Africa, the area of North Africa to the far west is modern day Morocco, was called Mauritania. And the short for Mauritanians was Meru. So the Merus were the people of Mauritania. And they then changed that as a slur to call them Moors. And this was mostly in dealing with people that we would call Berbers. And another word that I can't pronounce that was this Azmazgans, or the people of Maghreb. And it's a different Arabic word. But those were the ones who were called Moors. All these other, when you look at the conquest of the Muslims, from about Tripoli back east, they were just called Muslims. Tripoli on across to Marrakesh, were the ones that Europeans refer to mostly as Moors. Now, all Muslim worshippers were considered Moors after a while. But originally, it was just those people around Marrakesh and Tunis and those areas. Thank you, Volta. Amazad. So those are the people that they call Moors. Now, interestingly enough, they had different categories of Moors. They had black Moors, then they called them white Moors. Like the Europeans literally distinguished the difference between the white Moors and the black Moors. But were the black Moors the ones who was, as the picture would indicate, riding on horses and being and were kings? No, they were not. Most often than not, since the trans-Sahara slave trade started centuries before the transatlantic slave trade and lasted for 1,200 years, when these Arabs and Berbers conquered across North Africa, they began a slave trade of going across the Sahara and into West Africa and pulling and enslaving sub-Saharan Africa. Now, they call all of them Nubians. You didn't have to be from Nubia, but if you was over in modern day Guinea, you were considered Nubian. If you was from modern day Senegalese, you were considered Nubians. No matter where you was from, you were Nubian if you was of dark skin, of my complexion skin. Now, to Europeans, all of them were darker skin. So Moors, meaning black or darker skin or swarthy, was something that they applied to all of them, except for the white ones. They would call them white Moors, which would be a contradiction. How can you be white and swarthy? So all of them were considered that. But the black Moors, so-called black Moors, were not the ones who were the kings. They were not the ones who were ruling. The Arab Moors were the rulers. Now, why would I claim that? Well, the first thing is that this is an image of Tariq. Tariq, the one who conquered the Iberian Peninsula, the one who conquered Al-Andalusia. That is not a black man. That is not a black man. If you were to go to Spain now and go to the kingdom that I went to it, it's called the Hall of Kings in you will find that the Hall of Kings showing all the Muslim kings that was built. It was built in the 1200s. It was built during the time frame when Spain, the Iberian Peninsula, was ruled by the Moors, ruled by the part of the Islamic Empire. And so you understand, they didn't call themselves Moors. They called it the Islamic Empire. It was the Muslim Empire. They didn't call it the Moorish Empire. This was something the Europeans called it, but they didn't call themselves Moors. But these were the kings. And like I said, this was built in the 1200s. Now, they recognized that they had people of different variations of colors. You see the little black guy in the top right corner? You see him? But guess what Tariq had? Tariq had a black slave. Most black people, sub-Saharan Africans, began as slaves in the Arab Empire. They would be able to work their way out or show some levels of bravery and become soldiers and work their way up through the military in order to attain higher statuses. But none went higher than a general. There was only one account of a black Moor becoming a general. All of the other ones were soldiers, never allowed to become much greater than that. It's kind of like when I served in the Marine Corps, there were many people from Mexico and uh, Nicaragua and all these other Latin countries who were gaining their citizenship by serving a number of years in the military. I'm sorry, this is the first time I've seen somebody who spells their name the same way as my first name is spelled. That's cool. And no, the word Moor does not originate with that Latin term. It does with that Latin term Marus, and I said it wrong earlier. But the Marus were the people of Mauritania. It was not. It had nothing to do with black. There are Greek word. The Greek word moros does, but that is not why the Latin used the term Marus. It's different. It's just like if you go to the Philippines, they call uh, Muslim Filipinos Moors. Whether you're a Scion Moor or there's another type of Moor, they call them Moors as well. But it's not from Marus, nor is it from Maros. It is actually from the fact that most of them were in a city called Mandalanian or Mandalanos or something like that. But it's from the city that they are from. So when you look at the words and you try to connect it with another language, it doesn't always necessarily work out and fit in the same way. So when you research the Roman Empire, the people of Mauritania were called Marus, and it had nothing to do with the Greek term Maros. Because here's the thing, the people of Mauritania during the Roman Empire were just brown-skinned people. They weren't sub-Saharan Africans. Yes, there were some sub-Saharan Africans in the Roman Empire, but not that many. No, I'm not getting sidetracked. I was going to bring that up anyway, Ravina, but thank you. But you're right. I'm not going to get sidetracked. So now, so when you go there, so the Kingdom Hall, and this is where, and Lloyd's comment is perfect. Lloyd, your comment is at a perfect time frame. Oftentimes, what Black people like to say is all European history is filled with lies, it's tailored to fit their own interests. But if European history was a lie, then why would the Moors, the Muslims, who were in charge of Spain in the 1200s, when they created their Hall of Kings, why would they not paint them black if they were black? Now, this fresco that is on the ceiling, you can go there today and see it. It's never changed. Now, you can try to finagle your way into thinking on these different levels of deciphering and seeing through the truth and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, all you're really doing is saying that I have a narrative. I want to fulfill my narrative. This is not a European painting. This is a painting done by Moors, by Muslims. A painting done by Muslims during the time frame that they controlled Spain. Just as the Hall of Kings is done at that same time frame. It has never been changed. It's only been that way since its inception. And to ask why did they depict Jesus as white has zero to do with this picture right here. Nothing to do with it. No connections whatsoever. Within connections, sometimes there are no connections. Now, everybody has a general tendency to make God look the way that they want them to look. But to the European, Moors was a slur. Moors was something negative. If I'm going to paint them and I want it to seem that they are negative, I'm not going to paint them this light brown color. I'm going to paint them in a way that fits the negative narrative that I'm trying to pursue. So these people were not black. Now, as I said, there were some black Moors, but they never obtained the level of being a caliphate. They were never kings. They were never kings. Thank you. This was all to do with, my comment had nothing to do with the picture. Then we're not on that subject matter right now. These had to, I lost my train of thought. They were basically harems. Yes, you were allowed to have, they were basically harems. I know a harem as far as a whole bunch of people, have a bunch of wives, but I think that word also has a secondary meaning. But these Moors were not the the Moors were not they were not black. They were not all in total black. And so when they were being kicked out of the Iberian Peninsula, after they had lost the battles in Cordoba, they lost Cartagena, something like that, and they lost all this territory. They went back into North Africa and established themselves in Morocco, and reestablished themselves in Morocco because Morocco maintained this Islamic culture and maintained its Islamic rule. Now, at this time frame, these Berbers were still participating in the trans-Sahara slave trade. They were still going into North Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. They were still going into Mali, and they were still pulling slaves from there and making them convert over to their religion and become Islamic. So are there any Moors alive today? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them all over Morocco, all over North Africa, in Morocco, Tunisia. Those would still be Moors. But remember, Moors was a slang term for anybody who participated in the worship of Islam according to the Europeans, according to the Catholic Church, what becomes the Catholic Church. But according to Christendom, Moor also meant an unchristianed person who practiced Islam. Sometimes it even just referred to someone who was just unchristianed. You didn't have to practice Islam, but if they went into West Africa and they found tribes of people, they would refer to them as Moors because they were unchristianed. So depending upon the time frame, so in the like the 16th and 17th century, 14th, 15th century, from the 14th century to the 16th, 17th century, a Moor was anyone who was unchristianed. Respectfully, I was making a general statement about how history is taught. It's taught with a full and partial fabrication of the reality of that time, right? This is why we snake through it and we figure out what's real and what's not. And that is why when I was talking about this particular image, this was created by the people who conquered Spain, by the Muslims. But Moors were, yes, a mixed race of people. They were a mixed congregation. So were they considered pagan? To the Christian, yes, they were considered pagan. But anyone who is not Christian is pagan. So it doesn't matter what you believe. If it's not believing in Jesus, you're pagan, according to Christianity. Now, there was one more part. Was there one more part? So we know that the idea that they came in, and did they bring some levels of civilization? Yes. Did they bring the levels of civilization that Noble Drew Ali talked about? No. And that's why we got to understand the whole story. I don't care if it favors one group or another. The only thing I care about is truth. But this truth, and the reason why I brought this whole thing up is because it shows that when you have a person who is from an oppressed group and they spiritualize a religion with some mixture of some true history and a whole bunch of false history, people eagerly gravitate towards it when they are desperate. He happened on the scene at the right time in Chicago when you had literally tens of thousands of people out of Mississippi who were recognizing how they were being treated and how their ancestors had been being treated by their fellow Christians. And so when they arrived in Chicago, they was met by this organization of upstanding Black people who were working as a unit together in a culture. And in that working together as a culture, they practiced this Moorish science that told them that they used to rule Europe and that they brought Europeans out of the Dark Ages. And so we know it's false that they didn't bring them out of the Dark Ages, that time brought them out of what they call the Dark Ages. Rebellion against religion and the growth of science. Now, can you say that some of the innovations that the Muslims brought to Spain and to southern Italy helped to open the eyes of people and start to go against the church in science? Sure. There was the first surgeon to practice, the first surgeon in that who removed kidney stones was Islamic, and he did this in Spain. And I would imagine his teachings were taught throughout the students in Spain to other physicians, and that information spread, as all information has a tendency to spread. So could there have been some levels of inspiration? Sure. But we know that the overwhelming majority of people who began the Renaissance, that they actually focused more on Greek philosophies and Eastern philosophies and ancient Egyptian philosophies, not so much the Moorish philosophies. Were there other sections that could have helped? Sure. Quite, quite reasonable to think that. But to say that they brought them out, no. That's a miscarriage. That is definitely not true. Now, as far as since the Europeans who went and conquered in West Africa and started the slave trade, since they considered all people who were unchristian to be Moors, and since they considered anyone, and Moors does have the connotation of being dark. There was a 16th century writer who wrote about the battles throughout Spain. And one of the things that he said is that they came charging on their horse, and the poor little Spaniards were being defeated, and their faces was dark, and but he specifically mentioned their faces were dark. Well, if you've ever served in combat, even as a Black man, guess what you put on your face? You put on war paint, basically. We put on camouflage of dark greens and dark blacks. Even with my skin tone, you put on the blacks and the greens and to camouflage yourself. Putting on war paint is a common thing. You're riding across deserts and riding into battle to be all dirty and you're already brown. Yeah, someone may say that you're darker, but it's most literary archaeologists look at these writings and just see them as they were just getting ready for they was in battle. But they do admit that there were some Black Moors. Now, because of Shakespeare's play Othello, it started to become the main thought process in England started to be that all Muslims or Moors were Black. Is the power of the pen. That all are Black. And this just shows that how the expressions of the play of Othello was so impactful, in the same way how the Bacchae was so impactful that it created most of the ideas of Paul and the writings of Paul, that Shakespeare's play Othello was formidable in convincing the world at the time frame, which he was a 17th century writer, 16th and 17th century writer, that Moors were all black. And humans, the sheeple that they are, will easily follow along that line and believe it. And this is how Noble Drew Ali was able to convince all these people. I even have a few of them in my family who swear up and down that they're Moors. And I had to tell one of them, unless it's from your mama's side of the family, you're not a Moor. Because it's from your dad's side of the family, whose information I have researched and cataloged myself, and they come from Africa. And they come from sub-Saharan West Africa. So if you have any questions, let's hear those questions. Um, if you have any statements, let's hear those statements. If you think that everything I said is wrong, just let me know. Is there a correlation between Moorish Science Temple and Scottish Rite Masons? Do you think the contemporary Moorish Science Temple can have actualized a functioning society? Do you think the contemporary Moorish Science Temple can have actualized a functioning society? So the first question, there is a connection between Moorish science and Scottish Masonry in the fact that even before he even started Moorish science, there were already connections with uh, the English, the British, the Freemasonry of England, and the Freemasonry in North Africa were already in connection with one another. This is why Masons often become Shriners, because Shriners is pretty much Muslim Masonry. But Masonry began long before Arabs ever came into be known. But long before, well, I'm gonna say Arabs, long before Muslims came to be known. Masonry actually goes all the way back to the builders in Egypt, the temple builders in Egypt. Do you think you could contemporary Moorish science can actualize a functioning society? No, I don't. The reason why I don't think they would be able to do that is because of the requirement of you being part of their religious ideas and their historical beliefs. And their religious ideas and historical beliefs don't fit with what people can learn from history right now. You can challenge all these. I researched this for a day and a half, and I'm not even giving you guys all the information that I was able to find because we'd be here all night. And here's the thing, I researched this without even using Google Scholar. Usually I would go straight to Google Scholar or Academia EDU and read some PhD papers and things of that nature. I didn't even have to go that far. Is there any proof that the American group calling themselves Moors are actually Moors? No. There is zero proof that when the Moors left Spain, that when the Muslims left Spain, that they actually came to the Caribbean. There's no proof of that. That statement has no basis in facts. Um, when all the facts show that if they hadn't moved to the Caribbean, wouldn't you think they would have been able to build the same type of societies in the Americas that they built in Europe, but they didn't? So no, there's no connection to that at all. And there's no connection to them moving into sub-Saharan Africa either. And like I said, with my family member who thinks that they're Moors, I have demonstrated to them that no, our family, I don't know one of the guy's mother's side of the family because I don't know his mom, but I can tell you where his daddy came from. Even Drew Ali was a Mason. He was an adept student. Yes, I did see information where he was a Mason, which is an understanding of why he knew a lot of the Eastern philosophies, because in Masonry there is a lot of Eastern philosophies that's part of it. Uh, there is no proof that he actually. It is accepted that he spent time in Egypt and spent time in Morocco, but as far as his stories concerning uh, getting the lost chapter of the Quran, that actually a fatwa was put on him um, in Morocco and in Egypt because of his teachings of missing uh, this missing chapters of the Quran, and him claiming to be the reincarnate of Jesus, Buddha, and Muhammad. The fatwa never made it to the United States, but one was accepted to be on him. My biggest misunderstanding is why only associate the word Moor with only Muslims, while the Romans called black Africans as Moors and Marus look for the Borghese family in Italy, black nobility. But not all were considered that. So some of the other information that I looked up, because then some of it I just knew from previous research. The only people who were called Marus were the ones who were in Mauritania, which is modern day Morocco. The, for instance, the Punics. The Punics were known to be former Phoenicians who left uh, during the Bronze Age collapse. After the Bronze Age collapse, left the Levant, went to Tunisia, set themselves up, and became Punics. And then there are some Punic families. There's at least one Punic family who was a darker skinned man who became an emperor of Rome for a short period of time. And I think his son was also an emperor of Rome after him. Uh, I forget his name. I think it starts with an S. But they didn't consider all Africans to be Marus, just the ones from Mauritania, because they didn't have as much impact, connection with the dark skin sub-Saharan Africans. But you are right. The name should be, it's more of a location name than a group. But like I said, Moors was used to be a slang. They meant to be disrespectful to them. Oh no. I will never consider myself that. There is almost always, there's more information for me to learn than I don't know right now. And I've forgotten more information that I previously learned than I know right now. So I don't really look at myself in that term, but thank you for asking. Are they American Moors, but they are big difference. I don't know what MUURs are, or I don't know what that Washita mirrors are. Wichita. What are the images of those walls in Egypt that appears to be black folks tied up in ropes around their neck? Like what century would that be? It depends. It depends on which temple that you're looking at. But most of the time, those are like, for instance, in the Temple of Seti, those were uh, people that he captured that they fought and warred against in Nubia. Uh, so by this time frame, the Egyptians were more brownish red, and when they fought against the Nubians, who were darker black, they captured them as POWs. And then, of course, if you go into Sudan and some of their temples, you can see where they captured Egyptians. So these people went back and forth. It was a normal process to enslave whomever you uh, conquered. And I got way behind y'all. Let me see. Like, this is true. A genetic test can help, and the overwhelming majority of my genetics are relatable to Nigerians. There's some Mali. There's also some Scottish. I mean, not Scottish, Irish. There's also some Irish in there, a little bit. And I know where that comes from. Old Jack Reed. Is Jack or John? I keep mixing up which one it was. It was either John or Jack Reed. Was an Irish man. But yeah, most of mine is Nigerian and Mali and some Ghana. Do you believe African countries deserve reparations? Some of them, yes. Yeah, some of them, especially, and not just African country. Haiti deserves the bulk of reparations because Haiti should have never had to pay back the people who they defeated. That's bullshit. That's other bullshit. In other situations, I just think Africa just needs to take control of their nation and take control of their resources, and just like many of them are doing right now. So Moors trying to claim that they are sovereign citizens that travel in vehicles and not driving are just crazy and looking for a loophole to get around American law. Yeah, for the most part. Now I've met several, like a couple of hundred of them that are working on it. I have yet to meet one that has accomplished it. And to get their birthright money, their birth certificate money. Yes, the Moors created modern day Italians. No, no, not fully. I understand where you're going with that one, but not fully. You have to understand the Italians started changing when they was battling against the Carthaginians. The Italians started changing as they conquered all of North Africa. And when Rome conquered North Africa, and these browner people were there in the Levant, and these brown people are there, those people generally gained citizenship and became Roman citizens, and then become part of the Roman ideal. Now, yes, there were still some families that did, some levels that they didn't mix, but the Romans had been mixing with people long before a Muslim was ever created. The Muslims ever came around. Now there were Arabs that they mixed with, but it is not through the conquest because they never conquered the Italian peninsula. Now, because if you would have said modern day Sicilians, I would have gave you that one. Modern day Sicilians, yeah, they conquered Sicily for 700 years. They never reached further north than Naples. So now this is why that now I would say this: the reason why the people in the boot, the heel of the boot and the foot of the boot are a little bit darker is because of that Moorish bloodlines that are part of them. But when you go to Italy, the further north you get, the lighter they become. And then some of that is just genetic adaptation. Northern Europe is Northern Italy is cold as hell. It's mountains and all that kind of shit. Southern Italy is hot. Like Rome has temperatures like Atlanta. You roll up in there next month in Rome, in July in Rome, and your ass will be sweltering, be hot. Do you believe that ancient Nubia is the cradle of civilization in Africa? No. There is no one place that's the cradle of civilization in Africa. Different tribes in Africa were doing different things at different time frames based on their environment. You got Adam's calendar in southern Africa, which shows human crawl civilizations. Why can't they get credit? You had tribes and empires being built in all over Africa from from recorded history since the time frame of the 1200, from 9,000 BCE. And civilization, to me, if you got a group of people that decide to live together, I don't care how they're living, but they decide to live together, that's civilization. Civilization is, oh, you got to have these, you got to have some laws, you got to have some buildings, you got to have some schools. No. If we all decide to live together by code, we good. Because my code may be different from your code. I appreciate that. Many moons ahead. Let me see. Let me catch up with y'all. I'm too far behind. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to skip a whole bunch of stuff. I'm gonna have to skip a whole bunch of stuff. Right. You have to remember Hannibal conquered Sicily as well. So you had, and the Punics, who were originally Phoenicians, were brown skinned to dark skinned people as well. They were brownish dark as well because they were Phoenicians. Phoenicians was all up in Turkey and into the Black Sea and then all down into Egypt. So they was, and down in the Red Sea, they was all over the place because they were serious tradespeople. And that's another thing, exactly, Keith. Many people don't write down their history, and that doesn't mean that they didn't exist. You do what's necessary for your society, and that's about it. Hmm. What happened during the very first census in America, where people allowed to identify as what they, oh shoot, as what they always identified themselves as prior to the census? Well, the American census is a little wonky as hell. The earlier census, if race was left blank, you were considered white. If you were, if there's an N there or B, because different states did it differently, they either had an N or B, you were of African descent. If you had an M, you were mulatto, meaning you was half and half. And then if you had an I, you were Indian. But it depends on which state you're looking at, because weirdly enough, well, not weirdly, because back then it wasn't so much, you know, done in one platform like we do today. That's why it was confusing to me, because in one census, Jack or John was a mulatto, but then 10 years later, he black. And then 10 years later, he mulatto again. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, whoever was taking the census just wrote down what they thought. And in Georgia, they didn't use B, they used N, you were Negro, for a long time. Um, but then I think it's either Jack or John. I think it's John. John Reed, his census was, he was just white, but his wife was mulatto. And then I think Jack was mulatto, then he was black. He was mulatto at first, And then now remember, he was mulatto at first, and then he was black because he had a wife, and the wife was black. But then he was mulatto again. And you have absolutely no proof of this, where there is overwhelming proof of the transatlantic slave trade. But if you want to believe that, you're fine. But my thing, every time somebody says that, I'm like, where's your paperwork that proves it? Where's the archaeology that proves it? It's funny to me. Some of they'll post a picture of the Olmec, and they'll have an African dude who looks just like the Olmec. And then they'll see another person post a picture of the Olmec, and it looks just like this Spanish dude. And that's how people do things. They can, whatever their narrative is, they'll find the imagery that fits what they want, and then make it seem like, oh, see, here's my proof. I'm gonna say over 50. I know it's been more than 50, but more than 50 times. And I would say the first 10 times I just read it and studied it based on just reading the Bible with a little bit of outside research. Yeah. People try to appropriate culture to substantiate their race. People do that all the time. You can't shut down what you haven't researched. You go by mainstream science. Yes, but that's the thing. I have researched it. I literally have researched it. And here's the thing: no one knows. No archaeologists have ever come down and say this is where the Olmecs came from. The Olmecs are a mystery, and the Mississippian cultures are certainly, those people were there, uh, and they built mounds. And here's the thing: people around the world built mounds, and for that reason, I can say that, oh no, we really from Sri Lanka, because they built mounds and pyramids. Matter of fact, one of the oldest, I believe, one of the, if not the oldest pyramid is in Sri Lanka. So why don't I just say we from Sri Lanka? You see what I'm saying? No, you're right. I never heard of. Well, you spelled it different last time, but that doesn't mean I haven't researched it. Just because I haven't, you can't find one person who's researched the subject matter and they know every aspect of it. And no. Hmm. MERS refer to a concept used in certain fringe theories, specifically related to the origins of humanity and the history of the Americas. These theories, that the ancient group of people often called MERS, were the original inhabitants of the Americas and the first humans on Earth. They are also linked to the idea of the Moorish temple. Okay, so here's a problem with that: is that pretty much all scientific evidence demonstrates that there were people didn't exist in the Americas until after, not the last ice age, but the ice age before that. That there's no evidence of any people in the Americas before that time frame, whereas there's evidence of humanoids all over Africa and Asia long before there was any in the Americas. So the people in the Americas, however they got there, were not uh, and answers can be Googled if you use Google. When I use Google Scholar, they certainly can. Because Google Scholar utilizes uh, what's been researched through archaeology papers and PhD papers and things of that nature. But even if you just did a basic, it's funny to me that people will downgrade Google when it doesn't fit their narrative. If I Google something and it fit your narrative, and if I agree with this, with the more science, you'd be like, yeah. But if you don't, oh, you can't just Google it. Pick a lane. Thank you for answering. I was taught that Indians weren't allowed to identify as Native or Indian because only categories identified with black, white, mulatto. What's CTB? I don't know what CBWT means though. So please elaborate on who you believe built the Great Pyramids, not the origin, not the Egyptians that we know of or the Nubians that we know of. Certainly people who were living in that land. But these would have been people who were living in this land prior to the Younger Dryas Ice Age, the last ice age that began about 30 to 50,000 years ago. Because one, the Sphinx and the pyramids demonstrate that they were present the last time the Sahara Desert was green. The last time the Sahara Desert was green was between 13,000 and 26,000 years ago. No, 13,000 and 36,000 years ago. That would have been during the time frame of the last ice age, which makes sense because with the cooling temperatures, then the Sahara Desert would be cooler and would provide for vegetation. And there are ancient rivers and things of that nature that have been found throughout the Sahara Desert. So the pyramids and the Sphinx were built by whomever was living in that land prior to the last ice age. After the Younger Dryas flood, the Nubians who moved up into Egypt, they just found it there and tried to duplicate it, but were unsuccessful in duplicating the Great Pyramids. Because the pyramids that were built after, none of them are at the precision of the Great Pyramids. Right. There were no Homo sapiens were in the Americas before or during the Laurentide ice sheet. They weren't here. There's zero proof of anybody being here before that time and during that time. And see, this is what I'm saying. This is why I brought the people that he's talking about. With all respect, these people are someone that Noble Drew Ali just concocted off of other people's stories. So, bro, how do you feel about the Islamic belief? It is just as fake, if not more fake, than the Bible. I mean, it's somebody who gained access to the Abrahamic beliefs and then wrote their own story. And then they had access to the Christian belief, and they said, we're going to write another story. Oh, there's a thing about a dude who's a comforter who's supposed to come. That's another prophet. And then Abraham did have another wife, but had another baby with Hagar, who because in the Islam, Hagar she's the daughter of the Pharaoh. And so she comes from royalty. So that baby, we're going to attach to ourselves. It's another group of people. There's somebody making up a story like Noble Drew Ali. Muhammad made up a story based on previous information and webbed it together, just like Noble Drew Ali did, and created what became Islam. And the only reason it spread is because they killed people. I know that George Washington had an aide who was black. I don't know of any information about him helping him decide fights and battles and wars. See, that's another statement. We're not Africans, and Africans know that. Yet every time I went to Africa, I was welcomed and called brother, and I was told welcome home and all this stuff. Now I don't know how many African countries you've been to, but I've been to several. And at no time and place have I ever been to an African country where somebody told me that my ancestry didn't come from Africa. Whether I was in Kenya or Ethiopia or Egypt, or I was in Chad and Ghana and Ivory Coast and Senegal, and Congo and Angola and Liberia and Morocco. At no point in any of those countries did anybody ever say, "You're not from here." Oh, I will be. I will be. And if you're indigenous to here, why don't you have your, why you ain't got your land and your casino? You know, that's like saying the same thing. Why don't you go back to your motherland? Well, in all honesty, here's the thing. The land of my mother is America because my mother was born in America. My grandmothers were born in America. My grandmother's grandmothers were born in America. And for generations, they were born in America until one group was 1850, the other group was 1670s. So I can claim both. I know people, it's like they hate Africa so much because of what Europeans have taught them to feel about Africa, that they say all this negative stuff and don't and try to figure out any way to not be a part. And that's fine. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. Do you. Just don't force other people to try to do you. Don't force anybody, other people to try to do you. Do you believe praying over food is pagan? No, I just think it's stupid. If I put hemlock in your food uh, for the course of a year and you get sick and die, you've been praying over that same food, but you're gonna get sick and die. If I put hemlock in your food in the right amounts for over a year so that it becomes untraceable, I probably shouldn't tell y'all that. But anyway, if I put poison in your food and you die, what did your prayer do for you? Absolutely nothing. Say it again. What do you say about bad dreams? That you need to meditate and release your anxieties and your fears or whatever that you're dealing with because it's all coming from the inside. You think a person who kills on earth gets the same death as a hardworking man? How do you feel about bad dreams? How do you feel about, well, I said the bad dreams. Do you think a person who kills on earth gets the same death as a hardworking man? Yeah, y'all, both y'all gonna die. I don't understand that part of the question. People dying is people dying. And as far as the afterlife, I hope that my mind can create whatever afterlife that I desire for it to create. But in truth, there isn't any. There's no proof of an afterlife. Indoctrination does run deep on both continents. I'm sure you respond to somebody else, but I just like that comment. Oh, that's an interesting question. Which ancient civilization would you consider living 10 years in? That is not fair. That is not a fair question at all. So some of the people on here may remember, but I often fantasize about going back in time and living in different civilizations and what I would do and things that I would change and who I would get rid of because of what they create, what they did. Um, I mean, I would love to go back to ancient Sumeria during the time frame of Sargon of Akkad, simply because I want to see the sky at that time frame. Just see the sky. I would love to go back before the pyramids got ripped apart. The ivory got taken off. I mean, the not ivory, whatever it was that was on there was taken off. The white stuff that was taken off to see what it really did. I would love to go back during the time frame of Shaka Zulu and be like, look him, bro. Let me tell you what's gonna happen if you let this shit happen. Or even back to the 1300s so I can get everybody ready for the bullshit that's gonna come in the 1400s at the end of the 1400s. Or even to the Americas. Um, and get down like, look, when these people land here, don't let them in. We're gonna mess them up, and let me teach y'all some stuff. So yeah, it's problematic with me thinking about it. Now. As far as I honestly do want to go back to the Roman Empire when it was at its greatest heights during the time frame, like during Caesar Augustus, just to see it, just to see it. I think is what that Roman concrete was an amazing thing. To sit with the real Sir Dr. Guzman, like what was the real teachings of the Buddha? Like what were you actually teaching before all these people start changing? See, that's not a fair question for me. There are so many time frames and people that I need to go talk to. Do you believe in a creator? Nope. There's no proof of one. I'm open to somebody proving it, but you got to be able to prove it. And literature is never going to prove it. Why do you think people still feel they need a creator? Because they've been taught that, indoctrinated into that. The overwhelming majority of the world have been indoctrinated into the belief that there has to be a creator. And all of this stems from the fact that man looked at nature, looked at the sky, didn't understand what the hell was going on. And so they made up a God. There has to be some type of God that did this thing. And people still do it. And the more and more we find out about science, the more and more we realize that man creates all this shit. We, oh, you got a headache, so let me it must be a demon inside you. Oh, you got a headache because you got this pressure that's going on in your mind, so let me fix that with some aspirin. It's crazy to me. I saw something that said, how do I think we were created? I don't know. I don't think we were created in the sense of poof, Homo sapiens, common ancestor, divergence and mutations and change in environments, and you start to get a different breed. Just adaptation to environments, adaptation to different food sources, adaptations and development of tools and change in behaviors and so on and so forth. Same question. How do you think we created an animal? How Earth was made so perfectly for it to be a cow and on the grass and medicine? How do you think the sun was made? You think the Earth was created by a mistake? No, that is what believers think. People who don't believe in a creator think. The first part, we don't know how any animal we have theories of evolution and how shit get together of like attraction, but many of these theories are factual. The sun is birthed out of a nebula from a explosion, and all these things come together and creates a sun, and then the sun either spits out planets or solid objects gravitate towards together and create a core, and that core creates gravity that brings other elements to it, and it builds and builds over billions of years, trillions of years, and it becomes Earth. Earth is not perfect. Earth is designed to kill everything on Earth. The universe, not even universe, our solar system is designed to kill you. It's designed to kill you. We have discovered over 194 impact craters that are freaking huge. And we don't even know that other places might have even larger impact craters. This is Earth getting hit by asteroids at any time frame. Right now, an asteroid can come and hit the Earth that's the size of Texas, and everything on Earth dies. We got volcanoes, we got hurricanes, we got tornadoes, we got tsunamis, we have ice ages, we have warmings, and these things happen without the help of man. So Earth is not designed perfectly. You got mosquitoes that'll kill you, and you got big ass tigers and lions and bears that'll kill you. Earth is not perfect in its creation. Earth allows for what we call life to exist, and Earth allows for sentient life to exist. There are literally hundreds of millions of other planets that have similar sized suns, that are in a similar distance from those suns, and it is more than likely that some type of life that we would call life exists on those as well. It's a mathematical impossibility for there not to be. So it doesn't take creators to create this. And it's not by mistake. It just is. Jupiter is where it is, and it doesn't have life that we know of as life. Neptune is where it is, doesn't have life. Why we ain't getting hit by asteroids yet? We believe in spinning balls also. Oh my God, he's a flat earther. We do. We do. I think, is it over? But there's meteorite showers that's going on right now. I think it ended on the 7th. Every year we float through the Pleiades and there's meteorites, but thankfully most of them are small. But there are impacts. There are plenty of impacts every year of meteorites. I guess there's a portal that opens up in the firmament that allows for those meteorites to come barreling in. Oh, you have me confused. And I say this with all respect. Debating flat earth is the biggest waste of my time. I don't engage in flat earth debates. Do you believe in the firmament is proof we are dream we're in? Well, no, I don't. There's no firmament. What they call the firmament, I call the atmosphere. It's the atmosphere. And what, the sun is inside of this firmament? Come on, man. Stars are gonna fall in the last days. That's the hardest thing for most humans to say who believe in these things, is I don't know. Do you believe you're in your first life? I'm not being a smartass. I'm in the first life that I know of and that I will ever know of. Anything else is wishful thinking. I don't. What were you doing before you were a baby? You have no idea, right? If you do go into another life, you never know. And I'm not being a smartass. The consequence of suicide is that you're dead to Earth. To us, you're dead. That's it. Your energies are dispersed off into wherever it's going to go. And this is one of the reasons why I don't even deal with flat Earth, because if you're a Bible believer, then you have to believe in flat Earth, and that is just obscene science. It's obscene. The sun stood still for 12 hours, yet no one else around the planet on the same day talk about the same thing. This long ass day and this long ass night. See, this is why I can't see people like Sean. Look at him. Before I was a baby, I was swimming in an oval pool. Swimming in my daddy's big mess. But now I'm hitting beats with this big old. Stupid. Sean, I expect better from you. That's something I would expect Tim or Raph to say. Lloyd, are you talking to me? Actually, young Payola, I do understand the global Earth. I just don't waste my time debating it against people who believe in a flat Earth. If you haven't noticed, I don't debate Christians because I don't really waste my time. Now, little points here and there, sure, sure, sure. But to go to do a whole debate with Christians, it's a waste of my time. To go do a whole debate with we are already here people, it's a waste of my time. To go do a whole debate about flat Earth is a supreme waste of my time. What up? What up there? How you doing? I didn't even see you on now. Christianity promises eternal life, but the fact that your soul is already eternal, like your friends teaching you to breathe, even if you know how to breathe, you don't need Christianity for eternal life. You certainly do not. I read their work a lot. I read some. I don't know if it was by those two people, but the Brian Weiss sounds so familiar. But I did. I remember reading about past life regressions and tried. And for a while, I thought I might be getting there, but yeah, I just couldn't get with it. Oh, you were agreeing with me. Okay, let me see what you said. That's not the- Oh, I see. To admit, yeah, I'll admit if I don't know something, I just say I don't know. But thank you, Lloyd. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. I gotta ask Pale. I know I'm not getting into a flat Earth debate, but I just gotta know if the Earth was flat, what would be the purpose of teaching that it's a globe? What's the benefit? Because if the Earth was flat and we was trapped in a firmament, wouldn't it make more sense to me, just to me, just logical thinking, that at some point the governments and the people would get together? Why wouldn't they galvanize the people's intelligence to break through the firmament if the Earth was flat? I'm just so. What's the purpose? What's the big? Because no one ever answers that question. You know, what's the big deal? Why would the governments from? I mean, you are talking about governments for the last few hundred years who are at odds with each other. Why wouldn't the Russians be like, hell no? I mean, what was spending all that money for a space race? And then what would be the benefit if we all found out we was inside of a firmament? This big globe. What's the benefit of keeping that away from us? I'm not joining your roundtable, dude. You can counter that. I don't. You see what I'm saying? Now I just said no one ever wants, no flat earther ever want to answer that question. And I'm gonna go ahead and pre-warn you. I know a lot of high-level government people, so you're gonna have to come with something beyond the basic conspiracies of Illuminati's and Bilderbergs and all that kind of stuff. I really want to know why are we spending all this money shooting rockets and you know, satellites and all this stuff if there's a firmament. Taking these pictures, saying that we sent Voyager out there and Voyager's past Pluto now. You about right with that one. Ah, you about right with that one. There's no government countries, only Swiss banks owned by Hunger Game districts. No, dude, it's a simple question. I just can't prove it with text. Yes, you can. People write text all the time. They call books. They call paragraphs. They call sentences. Do I believe that humans will populate a different planet at some point? At some point, we have to. Billions of years from now, we definitely will have to because the Earth won't be habitable for our type of human. So humans will adapt as the Earth changes, but I would hope so that we would grow in our intellect, that we figure out faster than light speed or folding space or something like that. What do you think about the Bible story in the Bible, Mister? Oh, you talking to somebody else? I thought you talking to me because it wasn't. Isn't that somebody name in here? Called out? Yeah. No. Answer the question. What is the reason the governments all over the world, those who are at war with each other, are all talking, are saying the same thing? That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking you to prove flat Earth. Why would the government, all these governments throughout time, who have not liked each other, been at war? I don't know how old you are, but I remember USSR. I remember communist China. Hell, you got North Korea right now. Why are they all in agreement on this? That's what I want to know. I know you're not talking to me. I know you're talking to somebody else, but I just want to add to that. Just because everybody believes something doesn't mean make it true. Doesn't make it true at all. Right. Exactly. Blue dinero. I like green dinero personally, but blue dinero. I don't know what blue dinero is. Free energy. So you're saying the reason why they doing that is free, the flat Earth and free energy. Tesla knowledge, the same reason they killed him and hijacked his knowledge. But Tesla didn't believe in a flat earth. But I'm trying to logically think through, why does a flat earth or spherical earth have anything to do with Tesla's free energy tower that he built in Niagara Falls over the aquifers that provided free energy without a repeater system, and all you needed was an antenna to connect with it. But of course, you did have to be within a certain distance of it. What does that have to do with a flat or a spherical earth? Because if the free energy was powerful enough to go everywhere on the planet, whether spherical or not, it would still be able to go everywhere on the planet. That was more of a money thing with JP Morgan. Oh, yes, yes, yes. I study something every day. Well, one, I have to study every day to produce all these videos that I produce almost every day. Only reason y'all didn't get more videos earlier today because the sun beat me down and I was out. I left the house this morning and didn't come back till right about 30 minutes before this. He still ain't giving me a reason why the governments, and he started with Tesla, but yet there were governments before Tesla who were still promoting the spherical Earth. So Tesla's not a starting point. You got to go back, bro. Well, I'm done with the whole flat. I asked a simple question, can't get a simple answer, so I'm just saying, why weren't the Nazis also talking about flat Earth, or you know, yeah, I'm just saying. Okay, I see Mr. Ain't Going is arguing with somebody else. I'm not gonna get into their conversation. And see, that's a whole circle debate. See, I stray away from them circle debates. That man believed everything was created. Okay. Like that lady did me when I was driving down the street today, and she liked my hat. She was like, that's what I'm say to that. That's the point of the damn question, Payola. What is the purpose of the deception? God, was I not clear? Maybe I wasn't clear. The purpose of the question that I was asking is, what is the purpose of the deception between a flat earth and a spherical earth? What's the big fucking deal? Because if the earth was flat, what does that change as far as society is concerned? What would that have changed in the 1940s? What would that have changed in the early 1919s? What would that have changed in the late 1800s if the earth was flat? In the 1700s, what would that have changed if it's flat or a sphere? The only time it's changed anything is when the church got mad at Galileo and Copernicus. When the church, and many people don't even realize it, the church was mad at Christopher Columbus for coming over to the Americas because the church still wanted everybody to think that that you fall off the edge of the earth after 6 miles. I mean, they knew it long before the 6, but the European church, European Christianity wanted that. And what changes that they gotta hide this? Good Lord. It's a simple question. That fool said, why isn't a compass the shape of a globe? I'm not stubborn. You just won't answer the question. And I don't have time to go on somebody's thing. You know what's gonna happen when this cigar is out? Tim know what's gonna happen, but you know what's gonna happen is I'm getting off this show and I'm gonna spend time with my wife. That's what's gonna happen. And why would I tap a live stream while I'm in my live stream? That don't even make no sense. Oh, hold on, partner. Hold on, partner. And there's one thing that people don't do. You ain't telling me I got plenty of time. Like nobody tells this grown ass man what he got time for and what he don't have time for. I tell this grown ass man what I got time for and what I don't have time for. My wife can tell me sometimes what I got time for and what I don't got time for. Just like sometimes I can tell her, and most of the time I can't. And most of the time she can't. It's called respect. Ain't nobody telling me what I got time for. I don't have free time. I study and I enjoy my life. Enjoying my life is way more important than getting on a purposeless. See, this is what you're missing. And this is going to be my last thing for you there, young payola, and I'm moving on. The reason why flat earth debate is a waste of time is because it serves no purpose. Stop being emotional. What the hell? It's you know what? I was gonna go into explaining why, but it, the little petty shit, stop being emotional. You wouldn't even know if when and if I was emotional. That's one of those tricks that people like to use in a debate to make it seem like a person is not thinking clearly or to try to get diminish their thought process or their character being is by saying that a person is emotional when the person hasn't demonstrated any emotions at all to the degree of being upset or anything like that. Anything like that is just me recognizing you just don't want to answer the damn question. It's called dramatics for effect. But it's a to me the flat earth debate is a purposeless debate until you can distinguish the purpose of the why of it all. It serves no purpose. It's like having a debate with people who talk about the ice age, right? We know what happened. Now the ice age is a bad one. That's a bad one. Oh, the we were already here people. If you can't determine, if you can't distinguish what is the benefit, what's the purpose, like where do you go from there? What are you going to accomplish? See, one thing you don't know about me is that if something is not moving me forward, I don't give it any time. You know, so uh, it has to have a purpose. It has to have a reason, a why. Oh hell no, they just want to be right most of the time. Most there are people who debate who are actually looking for information or open to challenging their thoughts. Like I'm open to challenging my thoughts. That's how I got to be a person who deconstructed. It is because I challenged my thoughts, and I will always challenge my thoughts. But most people aren't willing to challenge their thoughts, especially if someone is coming from a perspective that is different from theirs. Then this is when the cognitive dissonance sets in. and then they just want to be heard. I remember there was a guy. There's this guy. He's a guy. There's this guy, and I didn't really trust him when I first met him, and that's all I'm gonna say about him. But he got after he deconstructed from Christianity, he went big into Dane Calloway. He was a Dane Calloway fanatic, and he was doing all his. We were already here. We were already here. But then I started asking, okay, you're already here. What are you gonna do with that? Other than just getting online and screaming it, what are you doing with it? What are you benefiting? How are you benefiting the people who agree with you? Especially in that kind of a conversation. Because if you're claiming that we are already here, then there are treaties that you can, you know, get involved with. There's processes of acquiring land and being able to build communities. So if you're gonna do it, if you're screaming that, why aren't you doing something? And the one time that I did talk to Dan Calloway, that was the thing I asked him. I was like, what's the purpose of you screaming this over and over again? You ain't doing shit with it. Oh, you show up and they let you do their little dances with you. But you got all these, and then I told him, I said, I know your real reason why. Your real reason why, because you know that people like it. It's something that's subversive. And so you're getting views. You're selling books. So and I told him, if that's your why, that's fine. It's just, I'm not coming on your show to deal with no bullshit like that. Because if you're doing something like that, there has to be something tangible for the people at the end of it. You're thinking differently. Recognizing where your history comes from, but here's the thing. You don't know why I'm still in America, first of all, and I don't mind admitting it. I got some back child support from having 7 years of bad business, and I wasn't making enough money when my child support was high as fuck. So once I pay that off, I'm out of here. Simple as easy as done. I'm out. I'm gone. I'm out of this motherfucker. Now here's the other part. When I leave, I will be buying land when I get there. See, that's the difference. When I finish off that child support and I can move to Africa, and I probably move around to a bunch of other places first because I just want to do the vagabond thing for a while. I'm gonna buy some land. Land shall be bought. When I'm finally ready to just, okay, this is it. I ain't going nowhere else. This is home. Yeah, it'll be some land being bought. Oh hell, Marcus, you see that clock? It's 2 hours and 13 minutes. I described that whole thing about the Moors for an hour and some change. Basically, Noble Drew Ali concocted up some shit based on bringing a bunch of other stuff together to at a time frame where black people were in a deep oppressive state, and created an organization based on some beliefs that he made up. But you're gonna have to start over, Marcus. That's what debates are should be about. And it really should be about the audience. Like whenever I have conducted or been a part of a debate, for me it was about the audience and not the person that I'm debating against. It's you put out your information, I'm gonna put out my information. You try to just disassemble the information that I put out. I try to disassemble the information you put out, and then you let the audience walk away from it, figuring out their own thought process. Unfortunately, most of the audience has already made up their mind before they even got there. Coach Rain is skipping for your brother for skipping how we were made animals. If a baby died, you think he got in it's he gets it wait a minute, he gets it on universe. Are you using talking text? I'm not bogus about that. You and somebody else was having a conversation, and as often on my channel, people in the audience start talking to each other, and I just let them talk. You weren't talking to me as far as I was concerned, but I did answer your question. I said we don't know exactly. I talked about the common ancestor. I talked about the fact that how stars are made and how planets are made, and how, and I didn't go deeper into how, but I could have, about how different elements, like hydrogen is the most plentiful fucking thing in the world. I mean, the universe. And hydrogen attracts other molecules, and those molecules, like oxygens, or like other hydrogen and then oxygen, and they start creating water. So yeah, that's how water is created, H2O. And that there are literally hundreds of millions of planets that will be in Earth's same position, and how Earth is not all that special. So yeah, I did. But you were talking to somebody else. So why would I jump in y'all conversation? Look, it's fine, Mr. Ain't Going. If you believe in that shit, go ahead and believe in it and make yourself happy. Why do you need us to be in agreement with you? We could care less. Like, I don't go to Christian pages saying, oh, y'all all just stupid. I care less what you believe. I've already, see, who was that? Who, I forgot who was asking me about debates. This is why I don't debate. I just told you, and yet you asked me the same damn question. I don't believe. I told you earlier. You asked me if I believe in a creator? I said no. But if you could prove one, it's acceptable, and literature is not proof. But you didn't say shit. So what the hell? You know what, Keith? It's not even so much about God being all powerful. If there was no hell and heaven, people wouldn't give two shits. And really, if there was no hell, people wouldn't give two shits about that God. Dude, how many times you starting to sound like James? Are you James just on YouTube? Because you're repeating yourself. Wait a minute. I'm trying to get you to debate. Is that, I wonder if that's the same brother Sanchez from a long time ago, like 8 years ago. But no, I'm not debating nobody over no damn flat earth. You can't tell me why it's important. You cannot tell me why it is important by flat earth. You respect my opinion, but you're not listening to it because you keep asking me the same question when I've given you the answer. So how do you respect my opinion when I give you the answer, then you ask me the same question again? You know, I've explained my thoughts on the creator. I've explained my thoughts on how we all came to be. And there's a large portion of it that nobody knows. And it even went to the afterlife part that nobody knows. Logical thought process. How do the world know about heaven and hell so much? Because people wrote it in a book. People talked about it and wrote it on scrolls. People taught their children. People created these beliefs. The Greeks created Hades, and they created Elysium and Tartarus. They created all those things. So do you believe in those? Because there were millions upon millions of people who believed in that. The Egyptians created this field of reeds and oblivion. People know about it because people have created it and talked about it. Coach, I have the same thoughts about how much people would care about religion as there was no threat of hell, but I fear reaching that conclusion because of the fear of hell. Yeah, if you take the fear of hell out of the um, situation, it's irrelevant. People won't follow it. If you want to create a religion, there has to be a punishment. There has to be some stick to go with it. He hasn't sent. No, the name Brother Sanchez just from. I don't know if that's the guy that when I was on Kevin Wesley's show that used to come on from time to time. I'm not sure. And he was a flat Earth guy, but I'm not sure. That was like 8 years ago, 8 9 years ago. Real country dude. I I, I just remember the name. I can't tell you anything about him. The name just sounds familiar. That is a thought process. The people, but the people in power would utilize the ideas of heaven and hell to control the people who they have power over to maintain that power as well. Look at David Koresh as an easy example of that. David Koresh used the power of fear to get those people to move into that damn compound, to tell those men that those are no longer your wives, they all belong to me because I'm Jesus. And as the Bible says, the women, everybody's the bride of Jesus. And he was shakalaka boom boom and all them men wives. And it's funny, some of the interviews that I saw of the people, and one stuck out in my mind because his only reason for leaving the Davidians was because David Koresh wanted to sleep with his wife. If he had never said that he sleeps with all the women, that man would have and his wife would have died on that compound. It's interesting how what causes them to click. Not all the other stuff. You want to sleep with my woman? Ah, that part. Are you talking to me, Sam? I was just talking about David Koresh. But I don't know if he was talking to me about that one. Isn't the God of the Abraham is a might? At the end of the day, it is the Jesus character, which was created by the Vespasians, but by the Flavians, changes that to a pacifistic kind of religion. But the Jewish and the Islamic versions are a might equals right. Okay, so you were looking for David Koresh? Yeah, Waco, Texas. That's a whole landmine of bullshit. You know, Sean, the Bible tries to say something like that. I think it's in Deuteronomy where it says that the word of God is written on the hearts of men. So that, and there were many pastors who tried to use that as an excuse to me when I was asked the question as a kid, okay, what about the person in the Sentinel Islands? They've never heard of Jesus. They die. What happens to them? What about the people who were born and raised in China at the time frame did not allow Bibles? So what about those people back in the 80s? They never heard of them. What about people who were living all over the world when Jesus died and ain't none of them heard about him? Wait a minute. Well, God writes on man's heart his laws and all that bullshit. And I was like, oh, okay. Sound like some bullshit. It is. They fighting Thanos, man. They fighting Thanos. It is. The four horsemen, they assembling to fight Thanos. And actually, this is like in other religions, you're based on your deeds, but in Christianity and Islam, you're judged based on your belief in fairy tale book. This is their reason for Christianity and Islam is nonsense. That is like 95% correct. Islam does have a little bit of an out. It does have a little bit of an out. From my understanding, if you didn't grow up, if you didn't believe in Allah, and you would go to Islam hell, and you would only serve like 50 years of going through Islam hell, and then you're recalibrated to Allah because it's like, okay, this was your final lesson. Now, let's see. I'm trying to remember what brand of Islam Umar was part of, but I had a Muslim guy, and he was telling me about that um, when I lived in Atlanta. And his family is very big in Islam. They're the ones who trying to kind of establish Islam, and his grandfather and established is the Islamic most of the Islamic temples in Atlanta, the Arab versions. Yeah, Islamic hell. I take Islamic hell over Christian hell. If I got to be wrong, no, actually, if I got to be wrong, I need to be with I think on Kush, which I think that's not you. What is your name? I can't remember your real name for just a second there. Yeah, I rather if I'm wrong, let me just reincarnate and try again. I'd rather have that one. I don't even want Islamic hell. That's why I was wondering. I was trying to remember what type of Islam he is because I know they all, just like Christianity, they all don't teach the same thing. But he was saying that you would go to the hell, your skin get peeled back during the day, and you get burned alive all day. Then at night, your skin heals back, and then the next day you do the same thing. You do this for 50 years, and then after 50 years, you get to go to paradise. And it might be just his brand of Islam, and I never researched where that comes from, where that thought process comes from. But is Islamic hell eternal? Yeah. In Islamic belief, while Jahannam is a place of punishment for the unrighteous, there is a common understanding that it is temporary for Muslims, not eternal. Although there are disagreements about this, many believe that all Muslims, regardless of their sins, would eventually be purged and allowed into paradise. The duration of hell state for Muslims is viewed as a cleansing of purification process and is not considered permanent abode. Maybe it's just eternal for the non-Muslim. And that's the part that's debated. It is debated that for whether or not it is eternal for non-Muslims, because some of them are arguing that God wouldn't be merciful if it lasted forever. That's just a quick search. I have to go a little deeper. Yeah, they get paroled. Yes, it does. The Bible does say that God created man in his own image, and also that every thought from man is evil. Doesn't that also implicate God? Yes, because in Isaiah, God said that he made the good and he made the evil. So, but yes, he does say that. Yeah, I did a video about that a while back. Pretty much stating what you just said. That yeah, if we're making this, and it's in Genesis after before the flood, he says that every thought from man is evil. Then after the flood, when he's like, okay, I ain't gonna flood y'all no more because every thought from man from birth is evil. Well, it says from his youth is evil. So he made a creature whose every thought, and he knew the plan would happen where every thought from man from the time of birth was going to be evil. And he spared some of them. If every thought from man was going to be evil, you should have killed Noah and his kids too. And then just let the animals run around. I mean, did he not say that if man doesn't worship him, that the stones and the rocks and the trees will worship him? So what the hell you need us for? The overwhelming majority of the Genesis story comes from the Enuma Elish, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Yes. Whether we're talking about the flood, we talk about Abraham, we talk about Genesis story, all that, you can find similarities from the Enuma Elish, from the Sumerian and the Akkadian story. Then it diverges with more of the Canaanite story, and that is because the original Israelites were Canaanites. And Canaanites used to be under the control of the Sumerians and Akkadians for centuries. That's why Yahweh is Enlil. I can't. I researched that like years and years ago, so I can't necessarily remember it. So I can't really answer that question. A great question. And if they draft Dylan Harper, I'm gonna be pissed. I would be pissed off. That's a repeat. Don't draft Dylan Harper. I think we are Moorish. I'm not gonna go through that whole thing again, but if you restart this video right around the 6 minute mark, you'll get everything. And we talked about it for like an hour. Yep. And the Abrahamic and Sarai, I can't say that they were jacked from the Vedic, um, Brahma and Swasti, although there are similarities, but the level of contact that they would have had between the two groups would have been incredibly minimal. But there is a story in the Enuma Elish where Enlil pulls Abram um, out of the city of Ur in Chaldea, and and then Enlil is awarded by Elion a people instead of a land. there's a guy claiming that Anunnaki had blonde hair and blue eyes per the Sumerian tablet. There were some, but the Anunnaki were a very divergent group of people. They were a bunch of different looking people. Hell, some of them say they were serpentine, but it's a bunch of different looking people: dark skin, light skin, white, black, Asian, a whole bunch of them. Y'all see what Keith's trying to do. He know that I can do. He know that that is an easy distraction for me. Basketball and Marvel, or damn near any other movie, is an easy distraction for me, especially Marvel. Uh, nah. Wemby doesn't play like a traditional big. He sits out there like he a three. Mm-mm. I would draft one of them one of them centers. I get that Duke boy, and working. Actually, there's the little Chinese boy. That's what I hope Atlanta drafts. I'm a truly an Atlanta fan. But Hassan Yang, I like him. He the next Joker. He the next Joker. Yes, and I will be there opening night for Fantastic Four because I have suffered through all the other four Fantastic Four movies. Oh yeah, if the Hawks were playing in the finals or the Spurs on Wednesday, there would be no show on Wednesday. I can tell you right. Yes, I am. The Spurs are my second team because I became a fan of David Robinson when he came into the league, and then I was a fan of Tim Duncan and Tony Parker. So, yep. And no, Trey Young ain't going nowhere. Yep, that Duke boy. But check out Hassan. Hassan is Hansen, I think. Yang. The boy is Joker in the making, and he's only 19. 7172. But Trey ain't going nowhere. They say they always trying to trade Trey every year. Wemby should have been a Piston. Hell no. I saw that coming 2, 3 years early of what they was doing. I knew Wemby was going to the Spurs. I told my wife like a year and a half early. I said, watch the Spurs get this Wemby boy. And she was like, who the hell is that? She's a Celtics fan. We ain't gonna hold that against her. She hurting right now. She hurting right now. Who are Masons? You're gonna get a lot of different information about Masons. Most people just start out with the masonry when it started in England, but England just adopted what the masonry that was in the Renaissance, and the Renaissance picked up the masonry that was from the Greeks, and the Greeks had picked up from the masonry that was in Egypt. Original masonry started in Egypt with the temple builders in Egypt, and it's had its time when it went away and then came back. But Egyptians would be the correct answer, and other people within the Levant as well, but mainly in Egypt. See, now that was a business decision. Luca would not have done as well money wise in Atlanta as much as Trey does money wise in Atlanta. He's Chocolate City, man. So they were gonna get the brother. Even though in 1850 he would have been listed as a mulatto, they were gonna get the brother. But that was a business decision. Hell yeah, the Spurs knew they was getting him. They were planning that just like they did with Tim Duncan. Yep, before they drafted him, they was already going to see him. And understand the practice of the geometry and masonry is about building yourself more than anything else. Yeah, I think they both drafted well. They both been to the the East and West Conference final, but Luka's been to the finals. The Pistons ain't gonna ever get a good draft pick ever again. Yeah, but Apple Pike don't know what he's talking about. When it comes to that, Apple Pike didn't know what he's talking about. Yeah, he didn't know what he's talking about. Modern day masonry stems from Egypt, not India. You know, even although India was building some magnificent buildings and whatnot, it started long before them, long before they started building. It started in Egypt. That's why we had the there's an interesting aspect of masonry in the Bible that many people don't even catch. The fact that there was an ancient Roman rock quarry outside of Nazareth, which is most likely that Joseph was a stonemason, and instead of a carpenter, it was changed to carpenter, but most likely he was a stonemason. And the fact that the Matthew story says that he was able to just pick up and go to Egypt. Well, during those eras, there were few. It was always craft guilds were the only people who could just go to a country without having what we would modern day call a passport. So the fact that the story says that he was able to just pick up and go to Egypt, he was a stonemason. Boston's going to do the same thing that Tim Duncan trade, be bad this year and get a good draft pick and get that kid from BYU and be back. I don't know. Is it going to be the BYU kid or is it going to be one of them Boozer twins? But then here's the problem with Boston. They already about at the second apron. So they got to let somebody go. Somebody got to go. White got to go. Holiday got to go. Uh, the I could, I always want to call him Karolinko, but it's not Karolinko. Big tall white dude. He got to go. One of them, two of them got to go. Two of them got to go. I was messing with my wife this morning because I told her, I said I had a dream that last night that Boston traded Jalen to the Lakers. And Boston got back some good stuff, but it wasn't equivalency, of course. But Boston traded Jalen, I think it was Jalen and Pritchard to the Lakers. So you heard it here. Y'all gonna be calling me a prophet if that happens, okay? Last night I had a dream, and no one's reported this, that Jalen and Pritchard got traded to the Lakers. All right. So after that happens, we're gonna change this to Prophet Rins. Deconstructing with Prophet. Then I'm really gonna make some prophecies. Yeah, Porzingis, thank you. All right. So I had a dream last night. That's what happened. That's what happened. So if that happens in the next couple weeks, y'all might see Angelina Jumpman beat me up a little bit because she's gonna blame me for it. But that was part of the multiple dreams that I had last night, was that he got traded to the Lakers. So if that shit happened for real, one, I'm gonna be mad because it's gonna show that the NBA, we already think it's rigged. But then it's really gonna show that it's rigged as hell if they did that. Careful, the ADL may censor you. Oh, Anti-Defamation League. What I say? They gonna trade Jalen? Or about Joseph being a Mason? Joseph in the Bible, that story, it clicks with Masonry. That's right, Robert Ben David Jr. There's no more smoke and there's no more coffee. Oh man, I wish I can remember what the bean is that my wife bought this time, so I can tell y'all. I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna tell y'all what the bean is that she bought this time. Whatever the coffee bean she bought this time around, and y'all know I'm coffee bougie. Where we are coffee bougie. There's some whatever this bean is, y'all gotta get some of this bean if you drink coffee. I don't know what that woman doing. I gotta tell y'all right now, because when I tell you that every cup of this bean has been glorious, and I know she went and bought some coffee today, and I don't know which one she got. I don't know if she got the same one. Uh, and especially do it in a French press. You like don't drip coffee this. You can't drip coffee. I gotta know. I gotta tell y'all tonight. What the hell is? Oh, you was talking to Steve. What time is it? 9:48. Yeah, she. I'm surprised I ain't got the googly eyes yet. She might not be listening. I know she ain't talked to her mom yet. Her mother today. What? What? So Keith and the rest of y'all, if you look into the description of this video, you will see that there is a link for the Drury Plaza Hotel. There's a group called Free Thinkers. We are going to meet here October 31st through November 1st. November 2nd. We're going to have the great meetup of Free Thinkers. Every event is designated to be in a free area. So this ain't about money. This is just about us meeting and having great conversations. We will have a meetup at Devil's River on Friday night. We will have, for those who get here early enough, we will also have a meetup Saturday mid-morning at the Chinese, late morning at the Chinese Tea Garden. It's free. We will have a meetup at the pool that's at the hotel, whether it'll be the indoor or the outdoor pool, depending on the weather. And they serve with your hotel stay. You get a free breakfast. You also get a free supper. And we will make up some other shit to do while we're there. So while we're here. So I really would like for you guys to be here. And Keith, if you come, dude, I am going to make sure you get some of this coffee. That coffee good. How have you gone your life without drinking coffee? You don't have to get in the pool. We just gonna be at the pool because it's a free area. I'm gonna get in the pool. That's why I'm going to the gym. Oh, so the coffee bean is Mexican Altura. Let me write that down. If you can get your hands on some Mexican Altura coffee beans, yeah, bring your 10K. I ain't gonna see it. I'm gonna put it in my pocket. Tell you right now. No, see. I said I'm gonna bring that one dude some coffee. Ain't nobody said they were gonna bring everybody some coffee. Only Keith Solomon is gonna get a cup of coffee. Ain't nobody get no free coffee. What state is the middle? San Antonio, Texas. Sorry, I didn't say. Yeah, San Antonio, Texas. Here, San Antonio. So you got plenty of time. You can go into the link and you can reserve your room. You don't have to put any money out right now to reserve your room. So you can reserve your room now. So go and reserve that room. And so that you can be here. And then get your flights early if you're flying. If you're driving, get the driving. But I just said for you. Mr. Solomon, since he's never had coffee before and he's 35. That is the devil. Can't believe you're 35, you never had no coffee. Don't go get no Starbucks, that's trash. Now, one day I'm gonna get a call from Starbucks and be like, "Hey, we want to sponsor one of your videos," and then I'm going to be like, "This video is sponsored by Starbucks," and then y'all can call me a hypocrite. I might have to work. Okay, see, this is the bullshit right there. That's the bullshit. I might have to work. You got almost 5 months. Put in your time off, and it's a weekend. Put your time off in. You got 5 months. See, that's bullshit. If you don't want to come, Keith, just say I don't want to come. That's all you gotta say. I ain't coming. You ain't gotta fluff me, bro. You ain't gotta give me no bullshit excuse. Just say you're not coming. I might have to work. Man, unless you're a longshoreman or one of them dudes who work on what's them things out in the middle of the water, the oil rigs. I don't want to hear that. Or in the military. Oh, heck no. Coffee doesn't keep me awake. My brain, last night I couldn't shut my brain off. I'm a prophet, I can prophesy. Now you put in your damn, I ain't gonna be there, put in your leave request, Keith. Put your leave request in. Bullshit, I'm a prophet. Hey. Stay in your lane, Lloyd. Stay in your lane. Because I can tell you right now, I know me and my wife, we will be staying at the hotel as well, right? Because I'm not driving back and forth from the house. We'll be staying at the hotel as well. We will bring our French press and our coffee grinder and our own beans. There is no way in hell I'm drinking hotel coffee. That's never gonna happen. I'm not drinking hotel coffee, even though there is a pretty good coffee shop a couple of blocks over, and they have really good pastries. I can never say the name of it, some Spanish name, but we will have the French press, the coffee grounds, and the beans. So I'm just saying. I'll be posting a little thing, coffee in room, whatever. I'm the same way with tea. Oh, your master was British. Stupid. Coffee with honey users awake for days. I don't know. Espresso don't keep me awake like that either. Unfortunately, our DeLonghi espresso machine is down for the count. So we're gonna have to, when we feel like spending another $900, we're gonna have to get another one. But that thing makes great coffee. All right, guys, I gotta get off here. This is way beyond. So I'm not gonna go over a rehash of all the stuff about the Moors. We are not Moors. That's for damn sure. Well, technically, we are Moors. Everybody who don't believe in Christianity is a Moor, according to certain time frames of Christian belief and where the derogatory name actually originated from, where the Berbers of it originated in the Romans with the Muru, as far as the people of Mauritania, and then by the time the Muslims conquered across the North Africa and then conquered into the Iberian Peninsula, they referred to them as Moors as a derogatory name, and that's meant for anyone who practiced Islam was a Moor. And then later on, after 1492, anyone who was non-Christian was considered a Moor. They were not king. The black people, the sub-Saharan Muslims, were not kings. They were slaves, and they served in the military. That's about it. They were not ruling Europe, and Europeans weren't. The monarchy was not living in cave dwellings and shit like that, because they still were had knowledge of and was using Roman building techniques, and we knew they built palaces um, that are still standing today. So Noble Drew Ali made this shit up. I said I wasn't going to do a review of this stuff. Noble Drew Ali made these things up in order to sway black people who were in a desperate situation and to benefit them. And yes, it had its benefits, but at the same time, you benefited people with a lie. So there, that's kind of it in a nutshell. But if you start this video over, there's a lot more to it. Yeah. So go back and watch the rest of it. Hasta luego, devil dog. Oh, Steve, where you at, Steve? I know you're not near here. I don't even know why I'm asking. Because we're thinking about going to we ain't thinking, we're gonna go to a Marine Corps ball this year. No, stop. Don't you see, Keith? You know. Okay. If you are a comic book reader, then you know in other multiverses, there was a white Black Panther. There was a black, and he was a Black Panther, not the Black Panther. He wasn't T'Challa. So, but in the multiverse, there is a white Black Panther. Just like how in the multiverse there is a woman who is Silver Surfer. I forget her name right now. Shara LaBelle or something like that. She's a woman. So when you're looking at multiverses in the comics, you can have that. So that's why I'm not pissed off about it. Now, if they was recasting the 616 Black Panther, I would have a problem with it. Oh, you're in Odessa. Odessa. I know where I am. Hold on. Odessa, Texas. God damn, you in the middle of nowhere. You are in the middle of nowhere, Steve. So we are looking at going to the Marine Corps ball that's north of Dallas in Fresco. It's supposed to be the biggest Marine Corps ball in Texas. So we're going to go to the one in Fresco, Texas this year. Oh, and no, I say this based on the NOI. What did you say? Oh, it's benefiting people with a lie, bad thing. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. No matter how if you're going to benefit people, always benefit them with the truth. You know, the ugly truth will always be better than a sweet lie. So you could still benefit people without telling them a lie. The problem is that we think that the only way Black people can come together is through some type of religious ideas, instead of recognizing that we should just be able to, Black people should have been able to come together just because of the oppressive nature of things that was happening in 1926 in Chicago, and with the Great Migration to Chicago of people out of Mississippi and Alabama. So if you just had an organization that had no religious affiliation, but you were creating fine, upstanding Black people who were progressing and were accumulating power, why can't you just do that? Why does Black people have to do it through a religion? And it's not just Black people. Why do people in general have to do it through a religion? And that's the part that irks the shit out of me, is that we don't have to have a religion in order to come together. We should be able to come together for other like reasons, right? Other like reasons. I guarantee all them people who are protesting in California right now, all of them ain't Christian. I guarantee it. Most of them probably are, but not all of them. But they have a common issue. And so they come together. You know, we have to stop allowing for religion to be the thing that we have to agree on in order for us to come together. When a better life, safer communities, raising children, having stronger families, That should be enough. But humans are so stuck on religion, that we stuck on stupid. So that just yeah. So no, that's why I disagree with that. And NOI actually admitted in 2018 to Louis Farrakhan that they took their process from Noble Drew Ali, and that he educated Fraud, David Fraud, who becomes Muhammad Fraud, or whatever his name was. All right, so y'all have a great night, and always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.